things that I'll be sharing. So there are several escape room Seders out there that are pretty easy to do with challenges. If you use electricity on Yom Tov, playing a song or a video from YouTube. And then the other is a favorite of mine, which is making the room look different. In some ways, the whole point of the Seder is to get people to ask questions. And we do that by shaking things up. So one year, and I like to make the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea. So one year I made a table runner with all of our Lego and Playmobil people, which is the picture here. This is not our matzah house, but we have made matzah houses before to decorate. One year, we filled up about 150 blue balloons and put them in a long hallway and made the Sea of Reeds, in which the kids had so much fun making their way through the Sea of Reeds. These are two or three different years where we, there's my mom in the background of that picture, where I bought, pool inflatables and hung them up with blue plastic tablecloths to make a hallway look like the Sea of Reeds and to make it feel like you were passing through the sea. It's a way of signaling to people when they first get there, this is going to be something different. I will also say, kind of my before the Seder spiel, we will often pass out a Passover bingo, and there are a lot of different Passover bingo sets you can find that gives people a way to keep track, and we give them stickers to cover the spots. And there are some that are funny, so like you get a spot that says somebody spilled their wine. But you can also find ones that just have different parts of the Seder. When Dayenu is sung, you put a sticker and it keeps people paying attention. We, as I mentioned before, we take this idea of reclining on Passover seriously, and we want our guests to be comfortable. I tell people to wear comfortable clothes. We put a bunch of pillows in our living room and people sit on the floor and on couches, because we don't want people to be anxious to leave because they're uncomfortable. And I realize there are a whole lot of chats coming in. Sorry, it's hard to monitor the chat and pay attention at the same time. But to think about how to make it a comfortable setting. So we do most of the Seder in the living room, and we move to the dining room table to eat dinner. And then we usually stay and finish at the table, but it's makes for a more comfortable evening, sitting on a couch than sitting in a dining room chair. For Kadesh, I say drink good wine, not to yuck anyone's yum. If you like Manischewitz Concord grape, then that is what you should serve, but you don't have to. It's not actually Misinai. And also for karpas, although I grew up where karpas was like parsley in salt water, we expand that to think about other things we can dip. So after we've dipped our parsley, we will dip veggies in a variety of dips. We usually do guacamole and like a sour cream and onion dip, and hummus because we eat kitniot. We will dip artichokes in butter, and then we will also dip sweet potato French fries in ketchup. And feeding people at the beginning will go a long way towards buying you their attention later on in the Seder. Especially if you're starting on the later side, it really helps. One of the central commands, the reason why we're gathering at this Seder, is that in every generation, one must see themselves as if they had personally left Egypt. And a couple of you mentioned, the kids putting on skits, and here you have a group of kids who are retelling the story in their costumes, which is a great way to give children time to leave the table if they need a break while the adults are having a high level discussion or doing a lot of singing or reading, is to say, we want you to tell the story. And sometimes we'll do this with we'll give the kids a bag of random items, and they have to incorporate these items into their play. And sometimes we focus more on costumes. But the kids get to tell the story. I think this year we're going to challenge them to do song parodies. Our youngest has been working with his friends at school, and they made a whole a whole Purim play with songs from Frozen and Encanto and Encanto. And so I think that's going to be their challenge this year. Another way of adding interest and creativity to your Seder is by what you put on your Seder plate. And I have heard of some people who have a whole extra Seder plate, a non-traditional Seder plate, and they ask each person to bring one thing that represents freedom to them to put on the Seder plate. Kveller, which is like a Jewish parenting website, has a list of 10 things to add to your Seder plate. The tomato is in honor of farm workers, tomato pickers in Florida. The artichoke is in honor of interfaith Jews from interfaith families. The olive is about peace between Israeli and Palestinians. I don't remember what the coffee was, but you can click on their list to see all of the different items you can consider putting on your Seder plate. I've definitely heard that some people are putting sunflowers on their Seder table in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. I'm sure we could think of other things as well. And it gives an opportunity to really talk about where there is still slavery and where there is still where we can find freedom in the world. I lost my. So the 4 questions of the Seder in this cartoon: can we eat? Do we eat now? When do we eat? Will we ever eat? Of course, if you've given your guests a hearty karpas course, then they will not be asking these questions. But we really work to invite questions. And so we generally buy some kind of a treat, marshmallows or those half moon fruit gels. And when somebody asks a good question, we will reward them with a piece of candy, because the Seder is about asking questions. There are some people have the tradition of lifting the Seder plate off the table and starting to carry it away to get people to say, wait, what are you doing? Which starts the conversation, and questions are really important. And so encouraging your guests to ask questions and then everyone to answer them and to have conversation around those questions, which creates a stimulating dialogue. But also, you don't have to just let your guests be the only questioners. One year, it was actually, I think the first year Mike was leading the Seder for his at his parents' house. We came up with a bunch of questions and wrote them as bookmarks and stuck them randomly in different Haggadot. And as people got to a question, they got to ask that question to the group. And the questions are a way of diving into the story and really exploring the story, which is the real point of Magid, of that part of the Seder. Um, for the Magid section, lots of fun ideas of how to make that fun. Tell the story wrong and see if anybody notices and corrects you and can retell the story in the proper way. I mentioned the paper bag dramatics where you put random items in a bag and ask people to ask out the story. Have asked people to tell the story with puppets. Use a children's book to tell the story. There are great ones. PJ Library has been a boon to stories. You know what, Michelle, I'm going to send out the whole slideshow so you can go back to that section if you'd like. Bibliodrama is a way of learning texts or stories where, oops, sorry, hit the wrong button, where you take on the personality of characters in a story. And so for one person at your Seder to be Pharaoh, and for other people to ask Pharaoh questions. What did it feel like when Moses came to you for the first time? Did you recognize him? Were you angry that he had left your family, or angry about what he had done when he killed the taskmaster? You might have somebody be, an ordinary Israelite and ask questions like, what was it like for you? Did you believe Moses? Did you trust him? Right? It kind of took a long time and things got worse before they got better. How did that feel? So bibliodrama can be a great technique. Did you slap him? Exactly. I've seen people do it with people being inanimate objects. Moses's staff. You were there when it happened. What was that like? And it allows people to use their creativity and imagination. It actually works better, I would say, with adults than with kids. A bibliodrama, I love that. Press conference. One person is Pharaoh's spokesperson and the rest of us are reporters. That's amazing, Stan. You can really have the conversation in very creative ways. There are lots of Seder Mad Libs, which can be a very fun way to tell the story with silly news, and also playing Seder 20 questions. Maybe I'm thinking of a Passover item and everybody has to ask questions to try to guess what it is. And I mentioned it before with the Seder plate, but it's another place to bring in modern day slavery. What do we find that we are slaves to today? So for the 4 children, I love, one of my favorite things to do is a 4 children art gallery. Particularly A Different Night's Haggadah, which we use, has a beautiful centerfold with color pictures of different artistic representations of the 4 children, and blowing those up and putting them around the room for people to walk around and look at the pictures and think about which version of the 4 children speaks to you, which one's problematic. And I've seen some very creative 4 children artistic renderings. Again, to act it out, let someone be one of the children and someone be the parent, and they have to figure out, what does it look like when the Rasha, the wicked child, asks the question? What is it like to be that parent? I would especially recommend, if you've got children at your Seder, let them be the parent and let a parent be the 4 children. And even extending it, what questions would other kinds of children ask? What would what would the ADHD child ask? What would the creative child ask? The dramatic child? What would the sporty child ask? And then there's a great Bim Bam video, which used to be Godcast, on the four sons, the four children, which is another creative way of telling that part of the Haggadah. The 10 plagues, I have to say, I am not a huge fan of having fun with the 10 plagues because, there's something about reveling in someone else's pain, but they are a very popular part of the Seder to expand. There's a website with family activities you can do for each of the plagues, with plague puppets you can print out. Lots of places sell plague kits. I think that's a site where it tells you things you can put together for a plague bag, where each person has each one of the 10, something representing each of the 10 plagues. I think my favorite is the edible 10 plagues. There is someone who sells nail decals for each of the 10 plagues. That would be a good one for my mom, who always has her nails done. And then, if you want a more serious discussion, the nails. What are the 10 plagues of today? What is the role of the bystanders? Is it fair that all Egyptians were punished by the plagues? Were they all responsible for enslaving the Jews? What was it like for them in this moment? And what does that mean for us? What does it mean to take responsibility for the actions of our leaders? And how do we disagree with our governmental leaders when we don't like the way they're taking our country, and we don't want to be responsible for the things that they're doing? I'm going to keep going. A newer tradition for us is the Afghani onion beating. And I've actually heard it attributed to different cultures, so I'm not sure exactly where it originated, but there is a tradition while singing Dayenu of taking scallions and beating people with the scallions. But Dayenu can also be a time of sharing gratitude. It is a song where we are grateful for what we have and taking some time to talk about what are the things that are enough for us, and thinking about ourselves again in that moment. What would have been enough for us? How would we have felt actually if God had taken us out of Egypt but not let us into Israel? I don't know if that would have been enough for me, but right, the song says it, and to think about each of those steps and how many things went into this moment, it can be incredibly powerful and an opportunity to really explore and dive deep. We're getting closer to the eating. Rabban Gamliel used to say, whoever does not mention these three things at the Seder has not fulfilled his duty: the Passover offering, the matzah, and the bitter herbs. Another reminder, right, that it is okay to do the minimum, right? To say, we're actually only going to use the Haggadah for just a couple of things, and mostly we're going to create our own ceremony, our own conversation. Rabban Gamliel says it's okay. So, if he says it's okay, then it's okay. For Hallel, you can find a lot of great Passover sing-along songs that you can find, song parodies, which Jews seem to love song parodies. And you can bring some of these fun ones. And I hope that, I don't know, yes, that link is still good, even though it's not blue. I'll link for more of them if you want to bring a couple of fun songs into your Hallel, your songs of praise. And Shelley says they sing the Mickey Mouse song, which is awesome. I will also say we're starting to get into some of the eating. I grew up with the Ashkenazi walnuts, apples, and Manischewitz haroset, but you can make creative haroset. We actually I do 3 different harosets. I do Sephardic haroset balls. I do kind of the traditional Ashkenazi, and then I do what I call California haroset, which has pear, mango, almonds, and Moscato in it. And sometimes also I'll do a haroset bar, where I'll put out a bunch of ingredients and let everybody mix their own haroset. Do you want apples or bananas, or, which kind of nut do you want? What kinds of other things could you put in it to make a paste? There are haroset recipes from around the world. Every Jewish community developed their own recipe for haroset based on what the foods were that they ate, whether it's with lots of apricots and dates, or pomegranates, or figs, or different kinds of nuts. And you can do an around the world haroset experience. This is from United Synagogue of Hoboken, who shared a bunch of ideas for when people need a break from the Seder, mostly for kids, that you can questions that you can ask to bring in some other physical modalities, to ask them to dance like Miriam at the Red Sea, or to give them blocks and have them build a model of what Egypt might have looked like, to act out different parts of the story, or to do a few other fun games to play. Also, the Haggadah that you use can really lead and frame your Seder. There are a number of Haggadot that are specifically for families with young children, and a lot of DIY Haggadot that you can make specific to your family and to your who's going to be there and what they're looking for. I've also included a bunch of different Haggadot with different focuses from all over the place. We have a tradition of, excuse me, putting out a lot of different Haggadot and encouraging people to follow along in whatever Haggadah they want. And then if they come across something interesting, to share it. So someone might have a Haggadah with an interesting sidebar, someone else might have a great picture, or a fun note that they didn't know before. And it's a great way. Again, you have to have a group that is comfortable enough following along in a Seder without knowing the page numbers. But it can be nice to pull in a thing or two here and there from different Haggadot. I will also say lots of organizations, and the last, I would say 4, I think, of these are just things that you can add into your Seder, companion guides or pieces you can read for particular parts of the Seder, depending on what you want to focus on. If people are feeling called to social justice, peace, environmentalism, helping refugees and immigrants. There's so much going on in the world, and we can bring all of that into our Seder. Just some fun things on the internet. There are so many great Passover song parodies that this is a link to a playlist on YouTube. I Left with Moses is a really interesting learning experience There's actually a whole book called Creating Lively Seders, with lots and lots more ideas than I could even share. I mentioned Kveller, which I like. Hadar has a lot of great resources and puts out, I think, a companion. Pinterest is actually my drug of choice, my social media of choice. It is a great way to search for things and then save ideas that you like. I kind of keep one for every holiday with craft projects or things that I'm interested in trying or thinking about. Godcast, I actually should change that because it's now called Bim Bom, has all kinds of explainer videos, which could be nice if you have someone coming to your Seder who either hasn't had a Seder experience before or doesn't know a lot about Passover. Is a fun way of kind of getting a little bit of background. And if somebody wants more deep background, My Jewish Learning is an amazing website resource with lots of short essays on different topics that are I always find myself, it's like the Wikipedia of Jewish learning. Like you start to read one and at the bottom it says you might also be interested in, and then I click on that one, which takes me to another one, which takes me to another one, because they're so well written. So I'm gonna stop sharing and ask other fun Seder ideas that have come to you in the time that I've been talking. Other things you want to share of things you've tried out or done at your Seders that have been really successful. Ruth. Hold on, you got to unmute first.
We have friends who play this game where they go through the desert and they're going to bring along something, and then the next person has to repeat what that person said and add something else, and you go around the whole table and pity the last person.
And you have to remember what came before. Very fun. Kim.
One of the customs my husband's family does that we've adopted is a questions jar. And at the end of the Seder, there's a jar, it has questions, it goes around the table, people pull it out. There's a question from the Seder. I mean, in their family, which not everybody might want to do this, but in their family, if you get the question wrong, you also have to take a tablespoon of horseradish. So not everybody has to do that part, but the questions jar is fun.
That's the best part. I don't know how you could not do that part. I really like it. Shelley shared that Jason Kimmelman Block made a suggestion of a Seder clock with the different parts of the Seder so that they can move it along. Everybody knows where you are and what's still coming, which is pretty amazing. Other Seder hacks, things you've tried that have been fun at your Seders to keep people entertained and engaged. Yeah, go ahead.
One way to keep one of the youngest attentive is give them the responsibility when we do the plagues to take a little can full of ping pong balls and throw it up in the air when we get to the hail.
Nice.
And the idea is to bounce them off the ceiling.
That is amazing and provides entertainment for the whole rest of the Seder, I am sure. Nice. Stan.
So when our kids were young, we would throw candy periodically. So the obvious time was when you're in the middle of the plagues and there's hail, we'd throw little bits of marshmallows, and when there would be the wild beast plagues, we throw little chewy animals. But just at other times, just to sort of wake the kids up, along the and I found a warrant for that in Rambam, who said, hand out nuts to the kids. Well, that was then. Now our technology is so much better. We can throw candy at them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I am not above bribing people to pay attention and be excited. I once did a Seder for all graduate students and I had pencils. And anytime somebody asked a good question, they got a pencil, which was a joke about a teacher we had who did that. But it keeps people paying attention if they know there's something in it for them.
That's what that guy that did it at Shavuot for the kids. That they asked a good question, they got a
Pearl, are you sharing with us?
No, I did, I thought we were muted, but it reminds me, once when we attended Shavuot at California's synagogue, and they had a program for the kids, like, and if a child asked a good question or a question, then that got answered, they could go outside and get, there was somebody out there that was making crepes, and they could put all kinds of yummy stuff in their crepes and eat it, and then they could come back in.
Right.
And it was for Shavuot, but it's sort of transfers.
We actually got that tradition from a family that we spent Seder with one year, and their children were all adult children. They were all in college and post college, but they did dried apricots for good questions. Our kids definitely would not work very hard for a dried apricot, but so that's why we do the marshmallows. But a little sweetness goes a long way towards making it fun, and we could all use a little sugar to perk us up on a long Seder evening. So I want to say thank you. I'm excited actually to try some of your ideas. I hope that maybe you've gleaned an idea or two for yourself that you want to incorporate into your Seder this year. And make sure you tell me what you tried and how it worked, how it went over at your Seder. I love collecting these ideas. I really have so much fun. Passover is one of the most fun holidays because it's so unique to who you are, and you can take it in so many different directions.
Rini put a really funny something in the chat. She's attended Seders where the family gave out scratch-off lottery tickets for prizes.
That's impressive. That is impressive. Oh, I didn't even say, I don't know. I must have lost my afikoman slide. We in our family, the person leading the Seder is holding on to the afikoman, usually tuck it in the pillows behind them. The kids steal it, and then they steal it from each other. They keep hiding it and re-stealing it to see who's left with it when it's time to bargain for afikoman, which is a very fun way of doing it. I grew up with the hide and seek where the parents hide it and the kids try and find it. But this is a nice turning of the tables. And I have seen my husband and his brothers, who were all in their 30s, go crazy trying to be the one that stole the afikoman from their father. Paula.
Along the same lines, when you said, it just popped in my head. Growing up, my parents did all sorts of things to try and make things fair and cut down on arguments. So at the Passover Seder, my father always hid the afikoman under the tablecloth right next to him. Okay, and somehow, when he got up to wash his hands or something, somebody took it. But we would bargain back the afikoman to my father. But the way it worked is whoever had it was the final negotiator, but all the kids at the table got the same thing. So they would negotiate 50 cents to everybody and that kind of thing. And that's the way we did the afikoman. We knew where it was, and then it's just who was the negotiator. I once had a Seder, they weren't actually Jewish, with some friends in Nashville, and I just told the father that he was going to do the negotiation with his children. That was a special Seder simply because his daughter had just started to learn to read, and of course, like many of us, we read around the table, and he was so proud of her that she was willing to read around the table. It's very nice.
Absolutely. Very nice. Oh, yes, there's a book called 400 Ways to Ask the 4 Questions. You just reminded me of Rini, that has the four questions in 400 languages, including Klingon, Pig Latin, and some other, and lawyer, yes, which is a very
gosh, Klingon, there is a lost tribe.
which is a very fun way of bringing in a little levity. Even if you just ask how many languages are at the table that people might be able to ask the 4 questions in, you could have an interesting and varied, answer just from the people at your table. All right, with all that, I'm going to leave you guys to your Seder planning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
This was
Yeah.
great.
Melissa.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank
Super.
you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Great ideas.
A lot of ideas.
Mhm. More
Great
chat.
ideas for all of us are doing with grandchildren now.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a challenge.
Absolutely. And when you don't have kids living in your house, you have a little more energy to be thinking about making the Seder engaging. Trying to entertain children every day.
At our house, the younger people look for the afikoman, but everyone gets a $2 bill as a reward.
Oh, very
Interesting.
So, like Albert did. Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
I
I'm
really
going to send
should've-
the PowerPoint